Okay, let's dive right into this explainer by tackling the mystery behind every sleeping baby's twitches, startles, and apparent nightmares. If you've ever found yourself staring at a sleeping newborn in the pitch black at 3 a.m., probably running on absolute zero sleep yourself, you know they kind of look like they're fighting a tiny, invisible war. Their breathing hitches, they grunt, their eyes dart around frantically. Well, today we're going to map out exactly what is happening in a developing brain during those moments. We'll debunk some massive myths and finally look at practical ways to manage all this biological chaos. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll be covering 1. The infant dream myth. 2. REM sleep as a developmental workout. 3. Decoding twitches and startles. 4. Maturing sleep cycles. And 5. Optimizing the sleep environment. So, let's kick things off with section 1, the infant dream myth. Fact versus fiction. When you see a newborn grunting, grimacing, and fluttering their eyes, well, it's completely natural for us to project complex emotions onto them. You might wonder, are they remembering a past life, having a nightmare about being left alone, or, maybe they're just dreaming about breast milk? But the biological reality here is a whole lot less cinematic than we want to believe. There is a pretty massive divide here between what we imagine and what pediatric neurologists actually observe. Think about it. If you define a dream as a narrative storyline with a beginning, a middle, and an end, babies simply do not have them. They just completely lack the cognitive ability and abstract thinking skills to imagine scenarios. Instead of a movie playing in their heads, neurologists suggest their dreams are more like a slideshow of blurry, out-of-context sensory snapshots. They're simply reviewing the data they collected that day, maybe a flash of light from a window, the smell of formula, or just that tight physical feeling of being swaddled. All right, moving on to section 2, REM, a developmental workout, wiring the brain. To understand all this activity, we really have to look at the massive contrast in sleep architecture between babies and adults. Newborns spend roughly half of their entire sleep cycle in active, rapid eye movement, or REM sleep. Half. Now, as adults, we only spend about 20 to 25% of our night in REM, which, by the way, is when we have those complex, plot-heavy dreams about showing up to work with no shoes on. So why do babies need double the REM? Well, it's because all that twitching and eye rolling absolutely isn't distress. It's a critical developmental workout. Their brains are fully lit up, laying down miles of neural pathways and basically writing the code that will eventually let them walk and talk. When you see a jerky, noisy sleeper, you're just witnessing the machinery running hot. It is quite literally the physical side effect of a brain doing heavy construction. And amazingly, this heavy construction starts even before they're born. Recent research from University College London shows that in the womb during the 3rd trimester, when a baby kicks, those movements during REM sleep actually trigger fast brainwaves in the corresponding hemisphere of the brain. So a kick of the right hand causes brainwaves to fire in the left hemisphere, physically helping the baby map their own body. It's just this essential biological process to develop a sense of their physical self. Okay, on to section 3, decoding twitches and startles. Reflex versus emotion. We absolutely have to talk about the arm flail. You know the one, a baby is dead asleep and suddenly, boom, both arms shoot straight out to the sides. It completely looks like they just dreamt of falling off a changing table, right? But they aren't having a falling dream. This is just the Moro reflex. It's actually an evolutionary leftover from when primates needed to instinctively cling to their mothers in trees so they wouldn't fall. So a sudden noise or even just a random firing of their own central nervous system is what triggers it. Then you've got what medical professionals call benign sleep myoclonus of infancy. This is when their limbs jerk rhythmically while they are completely knocked out. Again, totally harmless. Their nervous systems are just immature. You can really think of it like a brand new biological software update that just has a few bugs to work out before the system runs smoothly. Now, this next comparison usually brings parents a lot of relief. True nightmares require an imagination and a concept of fear. You have to know what a monster is to actually be scared of one. And a newborn just doesn't have that yet. Their entire existence is a binary state. They are either comfortable or they are uncomfortable. So that sudden, blood-curdling scream at 2 in the morning from a 4-month-old, it isn't a night terror. The culprit is entirely physical. We're talking trapped gas that feels like a knife, a wet diaper, or maybe a cold draft. True nightmares don't really start until much later in childhood, when their imagination finally turns on. Right, let's look at section 4, how sleep cycles mature. Growing up. It's fascinating because everything basically flips as we age. A newborn falls asleep directly into REM, and their entire sleep cycle is super short, only 45 to 60 minutes. This is exactly why they surface to near waking so many times a night. It's perfectly normal physiology. But by the time we reach adulthood, our cycles stretch out to 90 minutes, and we fall asleep through non-REM or NREM sleep first. And this flip perfectly explains something almost every parent dreads: the 4-month sleep regression. Around 3 to 4 months, the 4-stage NREM architecture finally comes online. Sleep onset starts shifting from active to quiet sleep. The system isn't breaking down, it is rewiring. So the 4-month regression is completely misunderstood. It's not a setback at all, it's actually a major biological maturation. As their sleep architecture matures, their dreams do too. Psychologist David Fowles spent decades studying this exact thing. He found that from 0 to 2, it's just that blurry sensory processing we talked about. Around age 2 or 3, as language and imagination explode, toddlers begin dreaming in static, plain images, usually animals or daily sights, with no real moving characters. It actually isn't until around age 7 that humans develop those graphic, complex, story-like narratives where they are the central character in the dream. And this evolution of sleep doesn't just suddenly stop in childhood. When we look at teenagers, their notorious late-night habits are usually blamed on screens or laziness. But the biology tells a completely fascinating story. At puberty, the timing of dim light melatonin onset, which is the internal brain signal that says, hey, begin night, biologically shifts roughly 2 hours later. They also accumulate sleep pressure more slowly. So an adolescent's late bedtime is a biological reality, not just a behavioral choice. Finally, let's jump to section 5, optimizing the sleep environment, things we can actually control. Because here's the thing, babies are just terrible at thermoregulation, and a sweaty baby is a screaming baby. A firm crib mattress is absolutely essential for safety, of course, but beyond that, temperature is your best defense. Highly breathable fabrics like organic cotton or cooling bamboo actually prevent their internal thermometers from short-circuiting during those wild REM cycles. Understanding the incredible science behind infant sleep really empowers us to trade our worries about invisible monsters for the comforting reality of actual biological growth. So the next time you see a newborn throwing their arms up in the dark, ask yourself, what foundational blueprint is their brain quietly building for tomorrow? Thank you for exploring this fascinating explainer with me.